That's the sound of the coffee pouring. Welcome to the Doctor's Brew. I'm your host, Dr. Abdulaziz Al Khayyab, and having coffee with us today is Dr. Mohammad Albanna. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you here in the studio. Now, with us today is a Renaissance man, or should I say a Renaissance doctor. For those of you who don't know, the idea of the Renaissance man came about in Europe during the Renaissance period, and it was embodied by people like Leonardo da Vinci. So a Renaissance man is a person who is not just a master of one craft, but a master at many, if not all. And I cannot think of someone who embodies this more than Dr. Mohammad Albanna. He is a consultant cardiac surgeon at Jabal Hospital here in Kuwait. He has trained at the University of Leeds, University of Toronto as well. And very interestingly, he has a special interest in robotic surgery. So we're going to find out more about the Terminator from him. And outside of medicine, and this is something I find extremely fascinating, he has recently completed his MBA. You'll notice one thing that I do like to touch upon in this podcast is business in medicine. So this is going to be super interesting today. We're going to explore everything from robots to business in medicine and everything in between. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I have to admit, Anna, I personally didn't know the meaning of a Renaissance man.
Oh.
If I may add to the list of things, also, I'm sure you know I've got this interest in media and social media, and one thing I'm very proud of is the show that I did on YouTube. Dr. Al-Qulub is a show that we've had, I think, 52 episodes.
Wow.
I haven't seen anything similar on YouTube since, and it is a chapter in my life that I'm very proud of.
It's fun to give back, educate the public.
Absolutely.
And here at the Doctor's Brew, we learn from people like you.
Thank you.
And your media efforts. And I honestly thank you for what you're doing to educate people.
Thank you. I'm glad that I've seen the positive impact it had and is having on people. Many of the patients that end up having surgery in Kuwait tell me that they've gone and seen, even if I'm not their surgeon, they go and they see the episodes to learn about surgery, what the surgery involves, and what's happening. So I'm very happy that this work that I've done is having a lasting impact.
So is it targeted for the general public, like people who are just curious about cardiac surgery?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
English, Arabic?
No, it's in Arabic and it's got English subtitles.
Okay.
So it's on YouTube. It's on my Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly I would say I direct people to YouTube because the whole library is there.
Perfect. Yeah. So please check out Dr. Albanna's YouTube and Instagram pages for more on his shows.
Thank you.
And before we dive in, we always like to talk about our coffee today.
Yes, it's good.
So yeah, tell us first. What do you think?
I have to admit, I know many people don't like what I say, but I'm a Nescafe person.
Oh, no.
I'm very simple when it comes to coffee. The thing that I look for is the effect.
Okay.
Just give me the caffeine hit. I don't care about the taste.
Really?
Many people actually obsess about the taste and the afternote and this and that. And I've many times I've got myself in trouble talking to coffee enthusiasts and tell them that I don't have a thing for specialty coffee, and I don't mind any of the popular chains.
Right.
But they don't like to hear what I have to say about it.
That is the biggest sin committed on the podcast since which doctor? Someone said they don't drink coffee. Dr. Hassan Bahbahani.
Okay.
He said I don't drink coffee, and that was the. So
Anna,
this is the
what? I used to
second
consume more coffee, but recently I've noticed that whenever I finish a cup, that my heart starts racing. And hence I thought, maybe I should stop or reduce. But what I did is I actually stopped it completely.
Huh?
One thing that happens is that my resting heart rate is about 90 to 95 when I'm drinking coffee.
Right.
And it goes down to 65 to 70 when I completely take out caffeine from my diet. And that's why I've chosen not to drink coffee completely over the past, I think, 5-6 months. I've not had any palpitations. Many of the patients who come to me or used to come to me in the clinic come because they feel that their heart is racing.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I tell them is take out coffee and tea from your and soft drinks that have caffeine out of your diet. طبعا it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
What happens usually is that you're usually out socializing, and when you and I want to meet, we'll say let's meet for coffee, huh?
Yeah.
So I end up not drinking coffee, and it's usually awkward trying to find
A substitute.
A substitute, yeah. So chamomile tea, non-caffeinated drinks is usually my go-to things, and they're not the same. They don't taste the same. It doesn't feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanna avoid the racy heart rate, and if it bothers you a lot, then that's the first line solution in trying to get rid of these complaints.
The Doctor's Brew does not endorse the views and opinions of Dr. Mohammed. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, if you're getting symptoms from the coffee, you should cut off the coffee.
Exactly.
But do you like the coffee?
I love the coffee. Yes.
Great. So
It's
the
good.
coffee is from Earth Roastery. Today, actually, I was running late to the studio because I was going to go get some beans. But I remembered that we have these drip coffee bags. So it's a way for you to make your coffee quickly from Earth Roastery. We promoted them before on the show. Be sure to check out their online website. You can get these in bulk, and you can be able to make your instant drip coffee without having any of the fancy setup. And it tastes great. I like the palpitations, so my heart is beating fast. I'm enjoying it. Now, on the podcast Instagram, we received messages before asking about caffeine and from a cardio perspective, is it bad? Is it good? And I actually read of a study that was done in the 80s. I think it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. I think that's found a false connection between I want to say coffee and cancer. Yeah,
I don't think.
No, it was discredited.
I don't think this holds. So usually what we say is 200 to 300 milligrams per day, which usually equates about a couple of cups. It is found to be cardioprotective.
Really?
Yeah. It reduces the incidence of heart failure, cardiac death, if you consume coffee. Having said that, again, everything in moderation. So long as you don't exceed this number, you should be fine.
So what do you think about all the energy drinks and what people are doing with, like, let's say studying, and consuming these large amounts of caffeine to get through studying periods? So
I think energy drinks, not only do they have caffeine, but they have other substances. That's number one. Number two is, again, if you want to have a drink, then probably you'll be okay. But what I notice is that the consumption is way in excess of what I would recommend. And hence what happens is that you tip yourself into a danger zone. And we've seen many people come in with atrial fibrillation, which is a racy heart rate, an abnormal racy heart rate, because of excessive consumption of caffeinated and energy drinks. That is why probably the best thing to do is to learn time management skills, study early, be prepared, so that you don't stay up all night studying the night of an exam. And I've had many people who don't open a book the day before the exam. Why? Because they've managed their time appropriately. They've studied all the relevant material before, and they just take it easy the day before. Maybe they flick through a few pages, and they go into the exam relaxed.
That's what I do. I can't. I get stressed out cramming.
Fantastic. I can't do it. So I don't recommend cramming, especially if you want to do it for long-term learning. There's evidence to say that cramming helps you on a short term. But for long-term memory, it doesn't touch it.
Do you think that our current medical, the way that med school is set up, though, promotes people, promotes medical students, doctors, to be focusing more on short-term learning or long-term? Because, for me, there's a lot of things that I will memorize just for the exam, and I end up spending a lot of time. I know I'm not going to use this again, but I focus on it just to get through an exam.
Look, so one thing to keep in mind, that even if you tell me I'm going to become a heart specialist, why do I need to know about the kidneys? I'm going to become a brain specialist. Why should I know about the GI system? Please remember that a human body is a holistic structure. And one organ influences the other. What you do on the brain will obviously be impacting what happens to the whole body. And you have to understand how the whole body functions. That's number one. Number two, in terms of general knowledge, as a physician, and when a patient in the clinic asks you a question, you cannot tell him, you know what, this is something I studied for in the exam and I don't remember it anymore. You still have to have some basic knowledge and retain that basic knowledge for the rest of your life. Many of the things and many of the answers I give my patients in clinic and elsewhere are from my preparation for my final year exam. So I've managed to retain the knowledge that I gained during that year for 20, 24 years beyond that date. And that's why it is imperative that not only we focus on our short-term memory, but we focus on long-term memory so that we retain as much knowledge as we can to help us manage and help our patients. Because a body is not just a heart. A body is made up of multiple organs, and they all impact each other.
I love that. I like how now the shift in medicine is a holistic one.
Absolutely.
Everything, even on a psychological level, I feel like even the orthopedic surgeons are being more psychologically savvy and aware.
Yes.
So I think this is a good segue. I want to, and I'm sure all our viewers and the audience wants to know a little bit more about you and your story about medicine. How did you get into this?
Long story short, my parents told me, you're smart, go and do medicine.
Okay.
Just so that, I'll give you الزبدة. But I still remember myself spending hours as a child putting together Lego parts and building different structures. So when I had a huge tub filled with Lego parts that I used to construct planes, cars, different kinds of structures. Obviously, when I first buy the Lego product, I'd build it the way it's meant to be built. I play with it for a couple of days and then I tear it apart. And then it goes into the big tub. So I would spend days playing with this and coming up with different designs for cars and designs for planes. And for the longest time, I wanted to become an aerodynamic engineer, someone who's able to design cars, design planes, but obviously this kind of profession is not relevant in this part of the world. We'll never be designing cars, we'll never be designing planes, we'll never be using aerodynamic engineering anywhere in Kuwait. So I realized that that's probably not a realistic specialty or a realistic area to go into. And I remember my mother saying, you know what, you're very smart, why don't you go and do medicine? How about you go abroad, you'll study medicine? And that idea appealed to me. So I've always, at least throughout high school, I worked to get the highest GPA that I could. At the time, I graduated with a GPA of 4.0. I was in مقررات in Kuwait.
Oh, in Kuwait.
Yeah.
Okay.
This system no longer exists. and then I applied to do medicine in the United Kingdom.
In the UK, in Leeds.
So I ended up going to Leeds. Yes,
Yes.
At the time I thought, you know what, I had the option of either going to Leeds or Newcastle. And I thought Leeds is going to be closer to London, and I'll be spending more time in London. Little did I know that the only time I'd be going to London is only to go to Heathrow, catch a plane to come back to Kuwait.
Right. Yeah.
Because medicine is just so overwhelming. You know, you're going to be busy with studying and whatnot, and hence you won't have the luxury of time to be traveling to London every weekend. Nor did we have the luxury of finances to travel that much. And at the time, our salary was, I think, £750, and we had to finance our living expenses, rent and whatnot, and it wasn't a realistic expectation at the time to be going down to London.
And how did you find med school? Did you like it?
So I was just about to say, having said that, Leeds at the time was a small city, smallish. It was good to study. Leeds University was amazing. I loved the school. I loved my professors. I loved the school administration. They were extremely helpful. There were times when I ran through trouble, and they just brought me in, sat me down. They're like, "Okay, how can we help you?"
That's amazing.
That was amazing. So I was very happy with my choice. I was very happy with the education I got. Although at the time we often think that what we learn and the school has not prepared us for life ahead, but once you're in on the wards and the hospital, you find that what you learned was pertinent, was useful, and you can use the knowledge that you gain to help people. So if I get the chance to go back, I'd do it all over again. The only thing I would do differently is maybe learn some more time management skills.
More time management.
More time management. I'm not a very good time management person. Yes, I've picked up these skills at an older age through the advent of YouTube. YouTube is my university. I'm constantly living on YouTube, trying to learn new things. Time management, exercise routines, finances, technology, surgery. I learn all these things on YouTube.
What I find fascinating about you is that you're embodying the idea of it's never too late.
I totally believe this. It's never too late. One thing that I learned in the MBA is that the three stages life: student, worker, retiree, no longer stands in the day we live in. What you'll find is that, and let's look at, for example, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. These guys went through school, but they didn't go through university. They started working. So, and anyone can do the same. They could finish high school. They, through their high school, they'd be learning on YouTube, and they pick up programming, for example. And then they go out and they start working in a company programming apps. Once they're bored, once AI comes in and it starts programming for you, you're like, you know what? Programming is not doing it for me. I'm going to go and take a leave of absence for a couple of years, and I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to go to culinary school, and I'm going to learn how to cook. And then after that, you go and you start and you become a chef. So now this is your second career that you've started. This is the second phase of education that you've gone through. And then you go through another career, let's say 10, 15 years, and then you're like, you know what? This is not doing it for me. I've had enough of cooking and culinary, and I want to combine IT and culinary. I'm going to do something else. And then you say, you know what? I'm going to take another break for a year or two. I'm going to learn something new, and I'm going to action this new knowledge into a third career, and a fourth career, and a fifth career. So people born or kids born now are expected to live beyond 100. To expect that these children or these individuals to go into a single profession and continue in this single profession for 60 years is just so unrealistic.
It's not happening.
It's
anymore.
not happening. So people are going to go through different iterations in their life. They're going to go through different phases with different interests and different careers. That self-learning is going to be the staple of this life. And to these people, it's never going to be too late. They can start a new career at any point in their lives.
But do you think this also applies for a career as a doctor in medicine?
Absolutely.
How?
So, let's say I've been a doctor now since 99. So this is now 23, 24 years.
Yeah.
Let's say, you know what? And I have to admit, I was telling a friend of mine, there isn't an operation that I haven't done. So now I've reached the pinnacle of my career.
Right.
So the satisfaction that I will get from doing more operations is less and less and less. Okay, I'm mastering these operations, but the challenge, the what should I say, the dopamine hits that I get from doing these operations is getting less.
Of course, naturally.
Naturally, yes. So I might be at a crossroad where I say, you know what, an opportunity comes up, and I'm told, you know what, why don't you go into hospital management, for example. And I might jump on this opportunity and leave medicine and leave surgery altogether, only to start a new career in hospital management. That's one thing. Number two, you could say, you know what, I don't want to do anything related to medicine. I'm going to use the skills that I picked up, the ability to communicate, the ability to lead, the ability to manage people, the ability to learn and continually learn and stay up to date, to start a completely new career in something totally unrelated. Probably it's best if you stay related. Let's say you're going to do a health app. So you're going to leverage the knowledge in medicine that you've picked up over your first career to jumpstart a second career. You could say, you know what, I've had my share in medicine. I'm going to go into law, and I'm going to become a lawyer dealing with medical negligence, for example. So one thing that you'll realize is that many industries actually look for doctors, people who have finished their medical degree, to lure them into doing something else. Why? Because they know that these guys are smart. They know that these guys have gone through rigorous educational process. They know that these people are willing to do the work, to do hard work, to achieve a goal. And you're going to just teach them. For example, in finance, in IT, in whatever area, you're going to hire these doctors, retrain them, reskill them into doing the skills that you want them to do. And then they start a new career outside of medicine completely.
I think this is something really important for med students to keep in mind.
And this is what I tell people. I'll tell young students. Sometimes not everyone who goes through medicine loves medicine. And that is why I tell people medicine could be a good stepping stone towards another career. So you don't have to be a doctor just because you finished medicine. You could go into pharmaceuticals, for example. You could go into research. You could go into finance. You could go into IT. Whatever area you want, you could go into it. Yes, you'll need to learn new skills. But even as a doctor, once you go through your specialization, you are learning new skills. You know what I mean? I wasn't born knowing how to do heart surgeries. I wasn't trained to do heart surgeries in medical school. I was trained, during my residency, and you could treat this new job as a residency in finance, as a residency in IT, as a residency in whatever area you want. Utilize the basic skills that you picked up in medicine. Maybe you're not going to use the anatomy and physiology in these areas, but you'll use other skills that you picked up, and they will help you to propel and excel in this new career. I often say and tell my junior doctors that imagine a cleaning man. I have all respect for all occupations, but people think, that cleaning man is the most simple job.
Yeah. Doesn't require training.
Doesn't require much training. Imagine this cleaning person puts in the hours that a junior doctor puts into his profession. On calls, after hours, studying, this whole time span, put it into cleaning. I bet you this guy will own, by the end of this 5 or 10 years, will own a cleaning company. Will be a CEO of a cleaning company, and will be a boss. So let's not forget that the amount of time we put at work, in training and learning, is huge. And this same time can be utilized to learn new skills in whatever area we like.
I wish I heard this when I was in med school, when I went through crisis, because I've always been a person who, my story wasn't, I've loved medicine my whole life and all I wanted to do was surgery, or I was into psychology and philosophy. And then psychiatry, hopefully that's how my road.
Yeah.
I wish I heard this during med school, because for me, I was always annoyed by the fact that I felt like in med school, I was like, right, so this is my whole life is planned out for me. I graduate, I specialize, I practice, and that's it. There's no thrill of starting a business. There's no thrill of doing a whole new area, a new job that you had no idea how to do before. I wish I heard this when I was a student.
There's still time. I don't think it's ever too late. I told you this before. And that's why when people say, should I study medicine? I mean, even if you're not sure and you're a hard worker, study medicine. The doors will be open for you afterwards in whatever area you want to go into.
That's very motivational. And now, for you, when you finished med school, did you know you wanted to go into your specialty?
So, second, third year of med school, we had, I wish I remember his name. I tried looking up his name, but we had an excellent cardiovascular physiology lecturer who made cardiovascular physiology so interesting.
Physiology. This person must be amazing, because it's the one area of physiology that I keep banging my head against the wall trying to understand.
Fantastic. So he introduced me to cardiovascular, the heart, the circulation. So that was the seed that was planted into the interest in heart and the circulation. Now, the other thing that also made me go into the specialty is, I've never settled for easy way outs. I've always loved the challenge. I've always loved to do the hard things. So, for example, during middle school and high school, I wouldn't settle for becoming first in the class. I would want to be the first or to get the top marks for everyone in the same year as I am.
Right.
So, because in my mind cardiovascular surgery was the toughest to do, it became appealing to me. It was a challenge that I wanted to conquer. And that's why I went into heart surgery, because in my mind this was the toughest. It required a lot of hand skills. People either live or die. The stakes are extremely high. The adrenaline rush is huge. And I loved it. And that's why I went into it. And it did deliver. It did deliver on adrenaline rush. It did deliver on high stakes. I love it.
And when did you specialize exactly? Which year?
So I did not waste any time.
Mm-hmm.
I came even before getting hired in the Ministry of Health. I went to KIMS asking how soon can I leave Kuwait to go and get and specialize. They
Right.
laughed at me when they heard that I haven't even started working yet.
Yeah.
So I think I stayed for 8 months in Kuwait before leaving again to Canada to do my specialization.
Right.
And I went to Toronto.
And one thing I've heard, and tell me how correct or not correct I am here, the field of cardiology in specific, both the medical side and the surgical side, has been kind of, the landscape has changed. Cardiothoracic surgery now is different to, for example, in the 90s, almost exclusively due to the advancements with statins, blood pressure control, and general education of the public, and PCI as well.
Okay, so I would agree with the first half of the statement.
Mhm.
The scope has changed completely, but it's not because of the meds. It is because of the technology.
The
It is because of the new devices and new technology that has been introduced, stents, percutaneous valves, or valves that are wire-based, that don't require an opening. All these different technologies have changed the horizon, and that's why many people would say that cardiac surgery is a dying field.
Oh, really?
I would disagree with this statement. It's not going to be a dying field. Having said that, the risks are going to become higher. The patients are going to become sicker. And the first option of treatment is going to be done through wire-based technologies, stents and percutaneous valves. And if these things fail, or if they're not indicated in a particular patient, then they're going to be referred for surgery.
So basically, the role of the cardiothoracic surgeon more and more is going to be interfering in the high-risk things,
Yes.
not in the routine.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And is this is this a good thing, a good change that's happening, a bad change? What do you think?
So, no, many of the surgeons would say that this is a bad thing. Now, what I tell people is put yourself in the shoes of a patient. Do you think, let's say that this patient is your dad, your mother, your wife, your brother, and they need something done on their heart. Would you want someone to open their chest and do an operation? Or would you prefer that they go through a small opening, put the valve or the stent that they require, have them stay in the hospital for a day, and then go home fully recovered?
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, yes? So, whatever is good for the patient, at the end of the day, is good.
Right.
I don't care whether it's good for the doctor or not. I don't care whether it's good financially or not. But if it's good for the patient, then I say that it's good.
And do you think this is going to lower healthcare costs overall? Or
Oh,
is
no.
this
Healthcare costs are going to shoot up.
really?
Because you're going to be using more technology, more gadgets. You know, people don't realize that medicine is a really expensive business.
Extremely.
And all these new technologies, you know, you've spent millions developing these technologies, trialing them, engineering, whatnot, and then going through human trials. And so as a company, I have invested huge sums of money. I need to somehow recuperate this money that I spent. And that's why I'm going to charge an arm and a leg for the device that I'm going to implant in you. And that's why I remember back in the day, when I was at University of Toronto, we had Professor Magdi Yacoub. Magdi Yacoub is an Egyptian heart surgeon who left Egypt, went to the United Kingdom. He's probably one of the most famous heart surgeons in the world. He has a foundation that through which he operates now in Egypt, in Aswan, I think. And he came as a visiting professor. And at the time, you know, we were, as trainees, we were feeling the impact of stents, because stents, especially drug-eluting stents, or stents that are covered with medicine to lower the risk of restenosis or reblockage, have been introduced into the market, and we've noticed that they're more successful at opening blockages than the first generation of stents, or the second generation, I should say, because the first generation was the balloons only. And he said, his point was, if you are looking for a job in which you operate on patients and you help people, there are lots and lots of jobs in third world countries, in poor countries, that are looking, where there are millions of patients that don't have access to a heart surgeon. So you could go there and help them. If you're looking for a job that would buy you a Ferrari and make you live in a penthouse, then you are right. There is a paucity of jobs like that, because these patients are now being treated by cardiologists.
Right. Okay.
So if the objective is to help patients and help people, there's always going to be people to be helped. You know, some poor countries will not be able to afford these expensive technologies, and hence they're gonna continue to rely on surgery and older techniques to help their patients. But if you want to make the big bucks, yes,
well,
your job is going to be impacted.
This posits an interesting question about social versus private healthcare, and is it sustainable? Because we want, of course, in medicine, everything is based off cost effectiveness. The quality of life years gained per dollar invested into a procedure. So, with these new technologies, especially in your field, and we're gonna get to robotics in just a second, but all these technologies are more expensive. Do you think that it's going to be, in the long run, still sustainable to maintain social health care, even for a state as rich as Kuwait, for example?
Look, I sustainable or not, I still believe in social health care. I believe in access to health care for everyone.
Right.
So this is number one. Now, unfortunately, if you want to have access to everyone, you have to have the doctors to work.
Yes.
You need to have the nurses to look after patients on the wards. You need to have all these people to be involved, and you need the influence or the contribution of technology and industry.
Yes.
To help you advance healthcare and medicine in general. And all of this is expensive.
Yep.
One of my beefs with social medicine is, although I am helping people, taking a lot of risk, doing tough things, I don't think I'm rewarded according to the risk that I'm taking. And I believe that doctors and healthcare has become commoditized, and hence I don't think that people in medicine are rewarded as according to the effort that they put in. And what will this do? This will drive people outside of medicine.
It's happening right now in the UK with the junior doctor strike. Exactly.
So there has to be a way to cut cost, to eliminate waste, and at the same time deliver good care to patients. The other thing that is happening also is with China getting into industry, is that they're driving the prices of technology down. So this could be a good way, is through driving increased competition in technology and in the industry, could help drive the cost down, but it's not going to be too low. And I believe that there is a lot of waste that could be cut out or shaved in medicine in order to help to cut the cost down.
But who are the people do you think that should be the ones to identify this? Because I've always argued that one problem, at least I've noticed in Kuwait, is I think too much responsibility is put on doctors.
It's not the doctor's responsibility.
No, we don't know anything about healthcare management. That's a whole degree.
Yes, exactly. So healthcare management is one thing. Number two is incentives. So, for example, sometimes you say waiting lists are long. And we don't have enough doctors to do the operations, for example. If you give a little bit of financial incentive, the doctor would be willing to work after hours. And this would cut down on the wait list. That's number one. Number two is that improving quality and working on KPIs, key performance indicators, and focusing on them, making sure that, medicine, in my mind, many aspects, especially surgery, for example, are like a factory. Patient comes in, gets a few tests, has the operation, gets some physiotherapy, gets some rehab, gets post-op care, goes home. So throughout these different phases and different steps, you need to make sure that each tick box is checked so that no one is slipping through the cracks, no deficiencies go unnoticed, patient care is streamlined, and they don't stay in the hospital for too long. You introduce or you give responsibilities to people at different levels in the hierarchy. So if something could be done, for example, I've always said that my place is not in the clinic as a surgeon. Okay, I come, I say hello, and try and answer a couple of questions, but my people, my team will answer all your questions and will see you and will prepare you for surgery. You need me in the operating room doing the operation. So please don't waste my time doing clinic, doing this, doing that, because I have a skill that no one else has, so I need to utilize the skill. Talking to someone could be done by anyone. Prescribing medicine and writing a prescription, I could have my interns do that. So that's why it's really important and really important to make sure that different tasks are delegated to people according to the responsibility and according to their hierarchy within the system. So if we make sure that top surgeons spend their day in the operating room, junior surgeons learn other skills elsewhere, and hence the system is streamlined. And hence you don't need that many doctors. You compensate these people according to the work and the productivity that they do, according to the quality of work that they do. I think there's many elements that could be tackled to help streamline, to help cut the costs.
I think and this is not just a Kuwait thing, I think in many healthcare systems, if we just invested a little bit more in management. I remember in the UK, I was really impacted once during psychiatry ward rounds. My consultant was on the phone for, I want to say, 40 minutes with a social worker during ward rounds, talking about a case. What she was doing had nothing to do with medicine. That was not her specialty. And that's waste. Like you're saying about you being in clinic.
I agree, totally agree. So this 40-minute conversation should have been delegated to someone else. That someone else would be talking to the social worker while the consultant is doing his rounds, diagnosing, treating, doing whatever they do best.
And now focusing back in on your specialty and your interest, robotics.
Can
you tell us a little bit about your
So I have to admit, when I said that there are multiple pathways and multiple ways through which we learn, and we're in a constant state of learning and acquiring new knowledge. This is a prime example. I completed my training at University of Toronto. I went to McMaster University in Hamilton, and I did minimal invasive cardiac surgery, and I had not been exposed to robotics. So I came back to Kuwait, I operated, still no exposure to robotics. While at Chest Diseases Hospital, the management or the department acquired a robot
In Kuwait.
in Kuwait. And the head of department at the time, Dr. Jamal Al-Fadli, told me, you know what, I want you to go and learn robotics. And I'm like, you know what, I cannot be bothered. No, not interested, this, that. He's like, you know what, no. I'm not going to take no for an answer. And I really appreciate this from him, pushing me to do this. We're always averse to change. No one likes change. We want to keep doing the same things we're doing. We all want to stay in our comfort zone, and no one wants to venture out. So, as part of the introduction of the robot, the company is responsible to training people. And that's when, I went on a couple of training trips to learn how to use the robot.
And by robot, forgive my ignorance.
Sure.
In my head, I'm imagining like a Terminator type person in the operation room.
Yeah, no, it's not that.
What is
these
the robot?
This generation of robots, these are stupid robots. So basically, you're wearing something, a device. So it's like a big joystick. And you're moving the joystick, and the robot is moving according to your movements.
Okay.
So you are moving the robot. The robot has no...
There's no AI.
There's no AI, yes.
Okay. But that's, I'm assuming, next chapter.
Exactly. This is the next generation. So these stupid robots would do whatever you tell them to do. Would mirror the movements that you move and that you do outside of the patient body. However, doing them through small holes with very tiny instruments.
So the effect, I'm assuming, lower risk for patient and more efficient surgery, right?
So I would say less morbidity.
Less morbidity.
Because of smaller incisions and smaller damage to the surrounding tissue.
Right.
There's less chance of bleeding and less requirement for blood transfusion because of the small incision and the small cuts. Plus, there is a huge advantage in terms of optics. So basically, you're sitting inside this machine with both your eyes looking through two cameras. So it's like you get depth of field through this camera. If you're looking with one eye, you don't really get depth of field. That's why we have two eyes to enable us to get the depth of field. So with this, you're able to see better, and if you can see, then you can do. And that's what the current generation of robots provides. So going back to the story, we went on the couple of visits, and then what we did is we brought a proctor, a surgeon, a fully trained robotic surgeon, Jean-Luc Janssen from Belgium, used to come and train me in particular, and train the whole team in general on how to do robotic surgery. First operation, he did completely. Second operation, he would tell me this part is easy. Third operation. So the parts got bigger and bigger as the time passed. I think by the fourth or the fifth operation I was doing the whole case. And that's the story of robotics. Now the beauty of it is that it enables you to do the operation without the requirement to open the whole chest bone,
which is huge.
Now, can we do everything that we do through our usual exposure? The answer is no. There are only certain things that can be done through the robot, and that's why not everyone is eligible to robotic surgery.
Right.
So they have to be seen, they have to be assessed, and then we can answer the question: can I have my operation done through the robot or not? So this is at this point in time, this is unfortunate.
It's very attractive, the idea of kind of robotics in medicine, but on a practical level, from your experience, is it as satisfying? So I'm not talking from the patient's perspective. For you, is it as satisfying?
So I would say it is satisfying, especially when we are used to big openings
Yeah.
and in heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you finish an operation and you've only made a few dots here and there in the patient's chest, this is really satisfying.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You know, so you
Yeah.
haven't opened someone up. You've done the job that requires to be done. You've helped the patient without subjecting them to too much morbidity. The other thing that happens is usually they're up and about by the next day.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing. So, you know, it is rewarding, I have to admit.
And
Is it more stressful for me? It is more stressful for me.
really?
It's
Why?
hugely stressful because, you know, with the heart, anything can happen and anything can go wrong. And if something goes wrong, you have to be able to push the robot out of the way, open the patient up, and kind of connect them to the heart-lung machine and hopefully save their life. So for me, it's extremely stressful.
It makes sense why you don't like coffee, because I think you get enough of your adrenaline.
I do get
from your
enough
job.
adrenaline, yes. I mean, I wear the Whoop, and you know, sometimes after finishing an operation, I get an alert on my phone saying that we've detected that your heart rate has been elevated for the past 3 hours.
Wow, okay.
And the past 3 hours are the 3 hours that I've spent in the operating room operating on a tough patient, for example.
Right.
So I do get enough adrenaline rush, I have to admit, at work during the day.
Now, thinking of things like AI, do you think long-term we're being replaced by robots?
Eventually, yes, we will be replaced by robots. In the interim, however, in the medium term time scale, it's going to be a combined effort.
Right.
The robot's going to do something, or AI is going to do something, and you're going to do something else. It's like an internet search that now you type in and then you get an answer. With AI, it's going to be live. You know, the system is in your ear, a chip implanted in your head, or whatever. It's giving you suggestions or ideas to help guide you through the differential diagnosis.
And
So
how do you feel about this? How do you feel?
If it reduces the time required to reach a diagnosis, if it reduces the chance of error and misdiagnosis, if it increases the chance of getting the diagnosis right, again we go back to the same argument. We have a fiduciary responsibility towards the patient to look after them and be their best advocate.
Yes.
Now, we don't care whether this is going to take our job. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that the patient gets the best care. Many medical students have replaced, or at least, let's say, downgraded the influence of grades and your ability to memorize, and focus more on your ability to be empathetic, your ability to be a human. Because these schools have realized that all the knowledge is going to be available on a computer, on an iPad or a tablet, or through AI.
That's interesting.
And what patients want is the human touch.
Yes, absolutely.
So AI, so far, is unable to provide a human touch. Okay, the AI will provide the diagnosis, maybe you're going to be operating on them, but the doctors, the nurses, the medical team is going to be providing the human touch. And this is what people will be looking for in the future, I think.
And I can imagine that, you know, if I were to go into surgery and let's say something went wrong, for me, to hear, okay, my surgeon comes to me and apologizes, says, this went wrong, this is what I did to tackle it, that's more comforting. But if someone comes to me and says, well, we clicked the button on the machine, the robot did the surgery and it messed up.
Well, again, now flip it over and say the robot did a great job, a job that could not have been done by a human being. What's your argument to that? What's your view to this scenario? I would say, you know what, that's amazing. I want to be the patient of this robot who does the operation perfectly. Having said that, medicine, you know, people are so varied. Disease is not the same. Anatomy is varied. And it's hard, I think, to think that we might reach a perfect operation, but maybe an operation or a treatment or a hospital stay with minimal side effects and minimal morbidity.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Idiocracy.
No, I haven't.
It's a dystopian comedy, kind of like if in the future the world was run by quote unquote idiots and basically robots dictated life. And there was a scene where there was a guy who goes in and he just, I think, put his finger or something, and then the doctor robot gave him the diagnosis. I always think about that if that's our future, but I think the human touch will always need to be there a bit.
I think we're far away from this kind of future. At least not I don't think in my lifetime, but I might be mistaken. But eventually this is coming.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to be plugged into a device, and diagnostics are going to be running in 5 seconds to tell you that, this thing is not working properly, that thing is not working properly, and somehow it's going to be, it's like Star Trek. I don't know if you're a fan of Star Trek. They've got this hologram as a doctor. So I think we're heading there.
A little bit scary. Now, moving a bit away from medicine, I wanted to ask you about your MBA. And this is something I find extremely, extremely fascinating. Saying it again, it's never too late.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved it. Being a student again was amazing.
Really?
I loved it. I was such a nerd.
Really?
Such a nerd, I have to admit.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about this MBA and why. By the way, for everyone who's listening doesn't know, an MBA stands for Master of Business Administration, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a course. Actually, you tell us, what is the course? What is an MBA?
So I'll start off. So MBA is basically, obviously it's a master's degree, and the aim of the MBA is to give you, or to give the student or the applicant to the program a flavor and a taste of the different components that are required or needed to run a business.
Okay.
So during the MBA, you study finance, accounting, marketing, leadership, management, operations management, all sorts of different core knowledge that is required through business, to run a company, to help run a company, to run a department. And then you're given the opportunity to do electives, things that you choose according to your interests. Some people focus on finance, depending on their background and where they intend to go. Personally, I focused on management and leadership. I knew I'm not going to become a financier. I'm going to hire a finance guy. I'm not going to be an accountant. I'm going to hire an accountant. But if there is a skill that is required by me, then it's to be a leader and to be a manager of a team. Why did I do the course? I have to admit that I was quite content working at the Chest Diseases Hospital. I had no interest in becoming a manager. I was happy being in the operating room throughout the day, 24 hours a day, lock the OR key and throw it out and just keep sending patients to me.
You're such a surgeon.
Exactly. Yes. And then I got approached by Dr. Salman Subah, who was at the time the head of department at the head department of surgery at Jabir Al-Ahmed Hospital, and asked me, we'd like you to join us, and we'd like you to start cardiac surgery at Jabir Al-Ahmed. A couple of times he approached me, I wasn't interested, but then, Salman is extremely smart. He's like, why don't you come and visit the hospital? And if you go and visit Jabir Hospital, it's
for the people that are not non-Kuwaitis, our audience also, we have a few people outside of Kuwait. Jabir Hospital, if you compare Jabir Hospital to the rest of the hospitals in Kuwait, it's kind of like putting, let's say, a Toyota Prius next to a Rolls Royce.
Exactly. So it's a 6-star hotel.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. It's huge. It's gorgeous. And as soon as I had a tour through the hospital, I was like, what, where do I sign? When do I start? So I ended up going. And the other thing that, through his foresight that he started doing is he started hosting heads of departments and surgeons from elsewhere, international surgeons, top people. He brought them over and they would talk about how to start a hospital, how to start a department, how to start a oncology, a cancer service, how to start this and that. And, on one occasion we had Professor Paris Tekis from the United Kingdom come and talk about how to establish an oncology surgical service. He had an interesting talk. It was around the same time as now. I was going to the American Association of Thoracic Surgeons. It's a meeting in the United States that I usually go to. And I get on the plane. Who's sitting next to me? This professor. I was like, you know what? Let me pick his brain. We're going to be sitting here. He's going back to the UK. I'm flying British Airways to London, and then from London to New York. Let me use these 5-6 hours to pick his brain and see what I can get out of him. So one question that I had to him is, you know what? I'm at the beginning of my managerial career. I've always been a surgeon. I've always been a clinical person. I've not run a service before. What do you suggest I do? So the guy says, you know what? I suggest you do an MBA at London Business School. Oh, really? Okay. I've done it 11 years ago or 10 years ago, and I found it extremely useful and valuable, and I suggest you do it. Okay, thank you. We went on talking about other things. I still remember walking down one of the streets in New York City. I get a notification on my Facebook Messenger, and it's Professor Tekis sending me a link to the MBA program, sending me a link to the school, telling me this is the school that I talked to you about. I think you should look into it. And you know what? On my way back, I stopped over in London and I went and I visited the school. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Let me apply.
Yeah.
Many things have happened. And it was like, it was like a sign. Things, my admission and my application process got facilitated. And I got accepted into London Business School. And I have to say I'm quite thankful to God for this opportunity. The school, I have to admit, changed my life.
Right.
The things that I learned, the changes in things that I've done, the way I now deal with my team, is completely different to the way I was before. The knowledge was transformational, and I have to admit, I'm a kind of person who assimilates the knowledge and takes it on board wholeheartedly, and I try and incorporate this new knowledge in my life, which I've done, alhamdulillah, quite successfully, at least in running the department and running the team that I have. I don't think I'm quite done with incorporating the different aspects of the knowledge. I think there's still quite a long way.
Yeah.
And I look forward to what the future has hidden for me.
I feel like it's almost essential if you plan to be a practitioner that also runs business, and that includes private practice, to have this skill set.
So number one, as people think, yes, our prime responsibility and duty is towards the patient.
Yes.
But you have to have knowledge of the business aspect of medicine in order to facilitate the care that you provide to your patients. So I'm not saying that this is to take away from the care, but rather to facilitate the care that you provide to the patients. You need to know how these companies are thinking. You need to know how management is thinking. You need to know how to best leverage this knowledge that you've gained to provide the care to the patients in a cost-effective manner.
Yeah.
Because cost at the end of the day determines everything.
It's in the NHS, in the UK, the National Health Service, and sorry, not National Health Service, NICE, the people that set out the guidelines. The number one predictor of a guideline is the cost effectiveness.
There we go. So you have to make sure and see whether something is cost effective.
Yes.
So that's number one. So it's important to facilitate the care that we provide to the patients. Number two, knowing cost effectiveness, knowing how the business aspect of healthcare runs, enables you to influence healthcare policy.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So healthcare policy is how care is delivered to everyone, not to your patient only, but to everyone in your system, everyone in your country, everyone in your jurisdiction. And if you want to drive things towards the better, then you still need to know about management, you still need to be a leader, you still need to know about the business aspect and how money operates in healthcare to be able to implement change in healthcare policy. Now, many people look at industry or companies as the evil.
Yeah.
Corruption, bribery, greed, all these things. Okay, yes, there is a bad side to every profession.
Even medicine.
Even medicine. Yes.
I mean, psychiatry not long ago used to be filled with lobotomies.
There we go. Now, I look at industry as partners. They provide the vehicle through which we provide the care to the patients.
Yes.
We just spoke about these new gadgets, these new devices. Yes, they're expensive. But tell a patient, we're going to open your chest up, have you spend a week at the hospital, a month recovering, or we're going to have you do a procedure and you go home in a day and you're back to normal in less than a week.
Yeah.
Do you mind paying extra money for this? They'd say, yes, we'd be willing to pay extra money for this technology and this gadget.
Yeah.
So industry is a major partner, and they shouldn't be looked at. They shouldn't be vilified. We should be finding ways to work together to provide the best care to our patients.
Absolutely.
The more technology advances, the more industry provides new gadgets, the better the care, the less morbidity we have towards our patients, the happier the patients are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, having knowledge of how industry operates will again provide you with skills and will provide you with knowledge that helps you facilitate care to your patients.
Right.
So that's why I think it's important to learn the business aspect of healthcare.
But was it difficult getting an MBA and practicing simultaneously?
So I was kind of lucky.
Okay.
Number one, the practice was less because we were in the middle of COVID.
Right, okay.
So surgery wasn't as busy. Surgery wasn't as busy. We were slightly busy, but not as busy, number one. Number two, an MBA is tough, regardless of when you do it. Full-time, part-time, it is a tough endeavor.
Yeah.
I remember I was sleeping about 4 hours a night in order to put in the hours for work, to put in the hours for studying.
Really?
Now I told you I was a nerd. I wanted to get A's in spite of the fact that I'm doing a completely different area.
Yeah.
I'm studying things that I've never studied before, and still I wasn't happy with myself. I'm a perfectionist. I still demanded so much of myself. That, plus I took part in extracurricular activities. I was the academic representative of my class.
Oh, really?
So any problems with the school, I was the person to go to by my class to take up with the school and with the management team. So that took time. I was also, me and a couple of students, Suraj Kalsasi, Stephanie Webster, we started a society at the school called Faculty. Faculty is obviously a member of, but Faculty and then T. So we would host Zoom sessions or Zoom meetings with members of the faculty, with the professors,
Right.
at 5 p.m. while having tea, talking about different areas and different topics that were of interest to the students. So this obviously also took time.
Yeah.
Preparing these talks, coming up with questions, researching topics. So this also took time. So, I guess I'm a media person by nature, and it was something that I enjoyed doing.
So what would you advise to, let's say, a young doctor, medical student? Because I think you're absolutely right with these skills being essential. But let's say someone wants to go and do an MBA, or maybe not even MBA. They want to gain these skills at least at some functional level.
Okay, so
what's your advice?
So number one, get out there. So imagine you have a gym or a membership for a gym that you don't take advantage of. So the membership is there and you never show up to the gym. Are you going to build muscle?
No.
The answer is no. So similarly, during the day-to-day, if there are chances to present, go and present.
Okay.
If there are chances to lead a team, lead a team. If there are chances to do some extracurricular work related to your day-to-day work at the hospital, then be involved. You will eventually get to be known by different people. Your face is going to become familiar. You are going to pick up some of these skills, if not a lot of them. Leadership, time management, management in general, communication skills, networking, all these skills that are required to be a successful professional in life. The other thing to keep in mind is there are combined programs. There's MD, MDA, MBA.
Oh, really?
So you can do an MBA midway through or at the end of your medical degree, and this would enable you to learn part of the skills. Now, sometimes it's useful to have some experience to relate to, after which you do the MBA.
Yes.
So that you can say, you know what, I had trouble and difficulty in this scenario and situation. The MBA is going to help me deal with it in this way. I've had trouble with dealing with superiors, subordinates, peers, and the MBA is going to help you deal with them in this way. So sometimes a bit of experience is useful. Now, at the end of the day, I keep saying it's never too late. Even if you're midway through your career, you can take some time, a chunk of time, to do your MBA on a part-time basis.
Is there an ideal time, you think?
Ideal time? So I would say maybe towards either immediately after your residency,
okay,
or towards the end of your residency might be a good time. You take a couple of years off from your residency, do the MBA, come back, do a year and a half of your residency, do your Royal College or board exams, and then you're set for life with all these skills.
Well, I'm gonna factor that in for my life planning. I have to be honest.
I think you should. It doesn't have to be through the residency, but at some point, either immediately after or through it, I think it will be very useful and very beneficial. Plus, the other aspect that is also important is the network that you make. In an MBA class, I was the only doctor. I was surrounded by people in real estate, banking, finance, oil and gas, engineering, airlines, car manufacturing, you name it. Whatever industry, there was someone, there was a representative from that industry. And if you need help from any of these people, in any aspect of either your current job or your future jobs, these people are going to be there to help you out. So the network that you make and the people that you meet along the way, they're going to be your friends for the rest of your life. They might knock on your door for one day for a consultation or for a question.
Yep.
Or you might knock on their door for questions, partnership. You might start a business with one of these people.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I can personally attest to the value of the network, because the biggest thing that the Doctors Brew giving me in my life is it expanded my professional network. And I don't only mean with other doctors, but also people working in social media, people working in different forms of media. It's opened me up, and it opens doors for you.
Absolutely.
And I know it's a snowball.
Absolutely.
It's a snowball.
Yeah. So it's we have this the concept of wasta. Huh? So these guys are going to be your wasta in whichever industry you need help in. Obviously, they'll know you personally.
Yep.
They're not going to give it without merit.
Yes.
You would have proven yourself as a hardworking person. Doing an MBA is not an easy task.
Yeah.
And they'd be happy to help you out. They'd be happy maybe even to partner with you in the venture that you're thinking of starting.
Well, Dictor, thank you so much for opening my eyes.
Thank you.
I can honestly sit and speak with you for hours and hours and hours, because I find you extremely fascinating. I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I like that you are a Renaissance doctor.
Thank you.
And for everybody who's listening, please take away from today to go out of your comfort zone, keep learning, and be sure to check out Dr. Mohammad Albanna's YouTube channel. Remind me of the name of your show.
So, Dr. Al-Qulub.
Dr. Al-Qulub. And follow him on Instagram. And please like and comment what's it called, if any thoughts or ideas you have about this episode. I think this is going to be an extremely eye-opening one for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope what we've discussed here is going to be of value to your audience. I'm a believer of lifelong learning. If anything, I would say that the theme is it's never too late.
Absolutely. I really, you inspired me, and I'm not just saying that just to be nice.
Thank you.
So that's the last sip of coffee for the day. A last thank you to our guest. Last sip. Maybe we should get guests to do that more. I like that. Perfect. Thanks again.
Habibi, thank you so much.
Perfect. Hope you all enjoyed this episode of The Doctor's Brew. New episodes to listen to with a cup of coffee coming your way every Sunday on YouTube and Spotify. And be sure to follow us on Instagram for all the latest updates. See you next time.